My daughter sued me for stalking, claiming I'd been following her across 3 states for 5 months straight. The problem: I was lying in a hospital bed in Boston the entire time, with a fresh pacemaker and a chest that had just been cracked open. Hey there, thanks for joining us today. If you enjoy this story, please hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop a comment telling us what part of the world you're tuning in from. Quick heads up, while this narrative contains fictional elements crafted for entertainment and educational value, and any similarities to actual people or places are completely unintentional, the core message and lessons are very real. The papers trembled in my hands. Not from shock, though there was plenty of that, but from the tremor that had plagued me since February, when they had installed a pacemaker to keep my 64-year-old heart beating. When a stranger shows up at your door on a Tuesday morning with legal documents, it's never good. But this was beyond anything I could have imagined. Notice of legal action, harassment and stalking. My daughter Hannah was suing me. The plaintiff alleged I had followed her across Massachusetts, appearing at her workplace in Hartford, outside her gym in Worcester, near her aunt's cottage on Cape Cod. The dates were precise: March 17th, April 2nd, April 23rd, May 11th, 3 months of violations. The same 3 months I'd been flat on my back in Massachusetts General Hospital, unable to walk more than 15 feet without collapsing. My name is Warren Morrison. I'm 64 years old. 3 years ago, my consulting firm collapsed. The stress destroyed my health. By last winter, my heart was giving out. Emergency surgery in February saved my life. 4 months later, I was still relearning how to walk. The lawsuit arrived in week 18. But it wasn't the accusation that made my blood run cold. It was the evidence. 12 photographs slipped out from the legal pages. In each one, a man who looked exactly like me stood in the background. Same height, same gray hair, same wire-rimmed glasses I'd worn for 20 years. In one photo, he wore a navy windbreaker, identical to one in my closet. I studied the images with shaking hands. The posture was slightly wrong, shoulders hunched forward. Small details, but there. This man looked like me, moved like me, dressed like me. But it wasn't me. My phone sat on the coffee table. I reached for it, my mind struggling to process the impossible. Hannah, my little girl, who'd held my hand before surgery and promised everything would be okay. How could she believe I would do this? Memory hit me: Hannah's wedding last September. She'd looked radiant. Her new husband had seemed nice enough, though. Something about him had made me uneasy. I'd kept quiet. Hannah was happy. That was what mattered. Now someone was destroying us with my own face. I found Thomas Garrett's number. He'd been my attorney through the bankruptcy. If anyone could make sense of this, it was him. He answered on the second ring. Warren. Thomas, I need you. I just got served with a lawsuit. From Hannah. Silence. Your daughter? She's accusing me of stalking her. She has photographs, 12 of them. But you were in the hospital. The whole time. Every single date. I glanced at the photos spread across my coffee table. Someone else did this. Someone who looks exactly like me. He processed this. If you have hospital records, I have everything. 4 months of documentation. I picked up one photo, studying the face that was mine, but wasn't. But that's not what terrifies me. Someone planned this while I was fighting to stay alive. Someone went to enormous trouble. Send me everything. We'll figure this out. As I hung up, one thought kept circling. Whoever did this didn't just want to frame me. They wanted to take away the one thing I had left, my daughter's trust. Someone who looks exactly like me. Someone who knows how to destroy what's left of my family. And I had no idea who or why. The confidence in Thomas's voice should have been reassuring. Instead, it terrified me. Warren, this is good news, he'd said before we hung up. You couldn't have done it. Hospital records prove you were monitored around the clock for 4 months. This case will collapse once we present evidence. But that assumed whoever framed me hadn't thought of that too. By morning, I'd barely slept. Thomas had been clear about what we needed: irrefutable proof of my whereabouts during every date listed in that lawsuit. The hospital was my first call. Massachusetts General's Records Department connected me to a clerk. I need copies of my complete medical file, I told her. February 10th through June 8th. Everything: admission records, nursing logs, medication schedules, visitor sign-ins. That's substantial, Mr. Morrison. Several hundred pages. I don't care if it's 1,000. I need it for legal proceedings. 3 business days, $200. I gave her my credit card without hesitation. Next, I pulled up my phone records. The detailed logs had arrived overnight. I searched for Hannah's number. 3 calls just as I'd remembered. March 3rd, 1 minute 43 seconds. I'd told her about the surgery. March 4th, 2 minutes 6 seconds. A follow-up because she'd sounded worried. June 10th, 31 seconds. A voicemail after discharge saying I was home. 3 calls, 3 brief conversations. That was it. My phone rang. Thomas. Warren, we have a problem. His earlier confidence had dimmed. I just spoke with Patricia Holloway, Hannah's attorney. She's doubling down. Says Hannah received 14 calls from your number between March and June. Multiple voicemails that were deeply disturbing. Hannah didn't answer any of them. I stared at my screen. That's impossible. I made 3 calls in 4 months. I'm looking at my carrier logs right now. Silence as he processed this. Someone spoofed your number. Spoofed. Made calls that appeared to come from your phone when they didn't. There are services online they can make any call look like it's from any number. His voice grew thoughtful. This wasn't random. Whoever did this knew your number, knew Hannah's number, knew exactly how to frame you. My chest tightened. The pacemaker did its job regulating the surge of panic. If they can fake calls, we'll need cell tower data. If you were in the hospital and calls originated from Hartford, we've got them. But it wasn't the technical details that made my hands shake. It was the realization settling over me. Thomas, this level of planning this much detail about my life. Who could possibly have that kind of access? I said slowly. Who knows my routines, my phone number, Hannah's number, her schedule where she works? The answer hit me like a physical blow. My son-in-law, I whispered. Derek. Silence. He married Hannah last September. My voice barely worked. But that would mean the man my daughter trusts the man she chose? I couldn't finish the thought. Couldn't voice what it meant that Derek had spent months systematically destroying the bond between us. Warren, we need to be careful here, Thomas said. That's a serious accusation. I know. I looked at the photos still spread on my coffee table. The face that was mine, but wasn't. I know. Send me everything you have. Phone records, any information about Derek. We'll start there. After I hung up, I sat in the growing morning light, my mind racing. Derek Chambers. The helpful son-in-law who'd always seemed just a bit too interested in my life, my health, my daily routines. The man who'd made a show of being perfect at family gatherings. The man who'd asked so many questions. If Derek had done this, if he'd gone to such lengths to frame me, then this wasn't just about a lawsuit. Hannah wasn't safe. And I had no idea how to tell her. Thomas's question wouldn't let me sleep. Who knows your routines, your phone number, Hannah's schedule? By 2 a.m, I was at my kitchen table with my laptop, open the blue glow, harsh in the darkness. Part of me didn't want to know, didn't want to confirm what my gut was screaming, but I typed his name anyway, Derek Chambers. His digital presence appeared in seconds. Professional networking profile, a few public photos, careful curated minimal. The face staring back made my breath catch. I'd seen him dozens of times at family gatherings, but never really looked. Not like this. Not with suspicion sharpening every detail. 6'1", maybe 6'2". Similar build, though. He carried more weight in his shoulders. Gray-brown hair receding at the temples in almost the same pattern as mine. Strong jaw, straight nose. Close enough that with the right posture, the right clothes, a stranger wouldn't question it. I pulled up one of the stalking photos, held it next to Derek's image. My stomach dropped. Not identical, but disturbingly close. In one online photo, Derek stood with his weight shifted forward, hands in pockets, exactly the wrong posture I'd noticed in those stalking shots. The posture that wasn't mine, because it was his. I started building a timeline, trying to make sense of it. Derek met Hannah 18 months ago. January of last year. Mutual friends, she'd said. A book club. He'd seem nice, attentive, successful. They'd move fast. By May, serious. July, engaged. September, married. 10 months from meeting to marriage. I'd thought it was romantic. Now it felt calculated. I forced myself to remember those family dinners after the wedding. Derek had been the perfect son-in-law. Always early, always helpful. He'd developed this habit of making coffee after dinner, insisted it was his way of showing respect. Said his own father had taught him to take care of family. I'd been touched. Now I remembered the questions. Always questions delivered casually. What time do you usually wake up, Warren? Still take that walking route by the river? How's your heart? Any new symptoms? Still seeing Dr. Moore at Mass General? I'd answered everything. He was family. He was showing interest. I'd thought he cared. He'd been gathering intelligence. The implications crashed over me. If Derek had spent months learning my patterns, studying me like a role he planned to play, then this wasn't spontaneous. This was premeditated, long-term. He'd married my daughter as part of it. But why? My phone sat on the table, 3:30 in the morning, too late to call Thomas. But I couldn't just sit here with this knowledge burning. I thought about those dinners. How I'd felt tired afterward, sometimes vaguely unwell. I'd blamed stress-age anxiety about my failing business. Recovery takes time, I'd told myself. I shook my head. I was spiraling. I needed facts, not paranoid speculation. I needed a professional. I found a private investigator's website, Boston-based Good Reviews. Left a message requesting a callback. Attached Derek's photos outlined the situation. Then I sat in the growing gray light of dawn, staring at his face on my screen. You studied me, I whispered to the empty apartment. For months. Asked your questions, learned my life, figured out how to become me. Then you married my daughter, made yourself family. Derek's frozen smile stared back. Got close enough to destroy everything. The question that terrified me most wasn't how. The mechanics, the disguise, the phone, spoofing the planning that I could almost grasp. What I couldn't understand was why. What had I done to deserve this? Or worse, what was he planning to do to Hannah? Victor Hayes had the look of a man who'd seen the worst of humanity and decided to do something about it. Former Boston Police Department, Thomas had said. 20 years on the force before going private. We met at a coffee shop in Cambridge. I laid out everything, the lawsuit, the photographs, my hospitalization, the spoofed calls, Derek. Victor listened without interrupting, taking notes in neat handwriting. When I finished, he studied the 12 photographs I'd brought. Professional quality, he said, tapping one image. Look at the composition, the lighting. These aren't phone snapshots. This was planned carefully over time. The confirmation made something cold settle in my chest. I need you to find out everything about Derek Chambers, I said. Who he really is, why he's doing this. I'll start with a full background check. And I've got contacts in Nevada law enforcement, former colleagues. If there's anything in his past, I'll find it. That was Thursday. He told me to expect results in a week. He called the following Thursday. We need to meet, not over the phone. 2 hours later, back at the same coffee shop, Victor's expression was grim. Derek Chambers exists, but his background is too clean, he said, sliding a folder across. No tickets, no claims, minimal digital footprint before 2 years ago, like he was manufactured. I opened the folder. Everything looked legitimate, but felt wrong. Here's where it gets dark. Victor pulled out another document. Derek was married before. Wife named Rebecca Chambers. She passed away in Reno 3 years ago. My hands went cold. How? Officially accidental overdose. Heart medication allegedly took too much. But the attending physician noted irregularities. Ordered a full toxicology screen. He slid the report across. One word stood out, digitalis. It's a cardiac glycoside, Victor explained, from foxglove plants. Treats heart conditions in controlled doses. In larger amounts, it's lethal. Rebecca's levels were dangerously elevated way beyond therapeutic range. So she was. The medical examiner suspected foul play. Charges were filed against Derek but dropped. Insufficient evidence to prove he administered it. Victor's jaw tightened. He walked. I stared at Rebecca's name on the report. A woman who'd almost been taken from this world, possibly by the man who'd married my daughter. Warren. Victor's voice cut through my thoughts. I need to ask you something. Think carefully. When exactly did your heart problems start? The question hit like a physical blow. September. Last September. Right after Derek and Hannah's wedding. That's when I'd started feeling off, tired, constantly irregular heartbeat, shortness of breath. By October, I'd seen Dr. Moore. By December, she was concerned. By January, I was in crisis. Last September, I whispered, right after they got married. Something flickered in Victor's eyes. Recognition. The same digitalis in Rebecca's system. He said quietly, would cause exactly those symptoms. Cumulative cardiac stress. Progressive deterioration. Small, regular doses over months. He didn't finish. He didn't have to. The cafe noise faded to white noise. All I could hear was my pacemaker's mechanical rhythm keeping me alive because my heart had failed. had been made to fail. He tried to end my life, I said the words distant. Just like Rebecca. Then while I was helpless in that hospital bed, he framed me. Victor nodded. We need proof. Your medical records from before surgery, blood work. If there are traces of digitalis in your system, then it's not just identity theft and harassment. He didn't say the rest. We both knew what it was. Dr. Catherine Moore looked at the archived blood analysis like it had personally offended her. We were in her office at Massachusetts General. Victor's request had prompted her to pull my pre-surgery samples run, additional tests that hadn't been ordered during the emergency. Mr. Morrison, she said, voice tight with controlled anger, your collapse wasn't natural. Someone did this to you. I'd suspected it since Victor showed me Rebecca's toxicology report, but suspicion and medical confirmation were different beasts. She turned her computer screen toward me. Charts, numbers, medical terminology. One word appeared repeatedly, digitalis. Your glycoside levels were dangerously elevated in every sample from your emergency admission. This wasn't age or stress. This was poisoning. How long? Based on cumulative levels, 5 to 6 months of regular exposure, small doses building gradually. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. They 5 to 6 months before February would put the start around September, right after the wedding. My son-in-law insisted on making coffee after family dinners, I said slowly. It said it was his way of showing respect. How many dinners would it take? Once a week for 5 months would be sufficient. Digitalis is cumulative, each dose builds on the last. By January, you were experiencing serious cardiac stress. By February, complete failure. Another memory surfaced. He was there when I collapsed. Derek and Hannah had stayed overnight. He called 911, rode in the ambulance. I thought I was lucky family was there. Dr. Moore's expression darkened. He may have saved your life after spending months trying to end it. The pacemaker in my chest maintained its rhythm while my mind reeled. Derek had orchestrated everything, the slow poisoning being present for the collapse, to appear helpful, then impersonating me while I lay helpless. We need to involve law enforcement, she said. This evidence needs to go to the police. My attorney is already building a case. There's a meeting scheduled Friday with my daughter's lawyer, all parties present. That's 3 days from now. She frowned. Warren, this man is dangerous. If he realizes, I know, but my daughter is living with him. If I go to the police now, I shook my head. I need to be strategic. She studied me, then nodded reluctantly. I'm documenting everything, making copies for your attorney and Warren. When you walk into that meeting Friday, make sure that man faces consequences. My phone buzzed as I left. Thomas. Patricia Holloway requesting emergency meeting. All parties. Friday, July 25th, 2 p.m., her Hartford office. She knows we have something. I called immediately. She's rattled. Good. Our hospital records made an impact. But we need to decide how much to reveal. The alibi evidence alone destroys their harassment case. But the poisoning changes everything. When we walk into that room, Thomas continued, his voice grave. We'll be accusing Derek Chambers of attempting to end your life, of poisoning you over months. That's serious criminal charges. Are you ready for what it means for Hannah? I thought about my daughter, about the man she'd trusted married, the man who'd systematically destroyed her father while pretending to care. She deserves the truth, I said, even if it destroys her world. Then we prepare. 3 days, Warren. 3 days to build an airtight case. 3 days until I face the man who'd tried to take everything. 3 days to save my daughter from the monster she'd married. 3 days to prepare. 3 days to build a case that could either save my daughter or destroy what little trust remained between us. Wednesday morning, Victor called. I'm maintaining surveillance on Derek. If he makes any moves, we'll know. That afternoon, he called again, satisfaction in his voice. Got him. Derek just walked into a costume shop on Asylum Street in Hartford. Gray theatrical wig, professional grade, and wire-rimmed glasses, circular frames. Warren, they look exactly like yours. The final piece clicked into place. He'd bought the tools to become me, purchase my identity off a shelf. Get the footage. Already done, time-stamped, dated, shop owner willing to testify. Wednesday evening, Thomas came to my apartment with a banker's box full of documents. We spread everything across my kitchen table. Hospital records, 387 pages. Toxicology reports with Dr. Moore's analysis. Phone records with 3 actual calls, circled in red, 14 fake ones in black. Security footage of Derek's costume purchase. This is comprehensive, Thomas said, organizing everything into a leather binder. Patricia Holloway thinks she has a harassment case. We're presenting evidence of identity theft, phone fraud, and poisoning. This will be over quickly. But Hannah would be in that room. She'd hear everything. Learn what the man she'd married had done. What do I say to her? I asked. Thomas looked up. The truth. That's all you can do. Thursday I rehearsed it 100 ways. Hannah, I know this is hard. Hannah, the man you married. Nothing sounded right. How do you tell your daughter her husband is dangerous? By Thursday evening I couldn't take it. I picked up my phone, pulled up Hannah's number. My thumb hovered over the call button. Just a warning. Tell her to be careful to stay somewhere else tonight. My phone rang. Thomas, don't, he said. Don't what? Don't call Hannah. If you warn her, she'll tell Derek. She trusts him, that's the problem. And if Derek knows we're on to him, his voice went hard. He'll run. Or worse. The implication hung between us. Derek had already tried to end one life. If cornered, tomorrow, Thomas continued. We do this right, legal documented witnesses present. We protect Hannah by exposing him in a controlled environment. I hung up, but couldn't put the phone down. Stared at Hannah's contact photo, her wedding day radiant, Derek's arm around her. I'd taken that photo. Sleep was impossible. I lay in bed thinking about the last conversation before the lawsuit. She'd called, voice strained. I'm sorry, Dad. I have to do this. I have to protect my family now. At the time I'd thought she meant Derek, that she was choosing her husband over her father. Now in the darkness with Friday looming, I wondered, what if she'd sensed something wrong but couldn't name it? What if instinct told her danger was close? But Derek had redirected that fear toward me, gaslighting her into believing her father was the threat when the real danger slept beside her. I have to protect my family now. Not Derek's family. Not their marriage. Her family. What if she'd been trying to protect something I didn't even know about yet? The thought wouldn't let me rest. 12 hours until the meeting. 12 hours until I'd see my daughter and destroy her world to save her life. Friday, July 25th. 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Patricia Holloway's law office occupied the 14th floor of a glass tower in downtown Hartford. The conference room was all polished mahogany and floor-to-ceiling windows designed to intimidate. All the rehearsal in the world couldn't prepare me for seeing my daughter. Hannah sat across the table, and my first thought was how small she looked. She'd lost weight, collarbones sharp beneath a navy blouse, face drawn and pale. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. She wouldn't look at me. Kept her gaze fixed on the legal pad in front of her, hands clasped white-knuckled. Derek sat beside her, hand resting on her chair, supportive or possessive, probably both. He met my eyes with concerned sympathy that made my skin crawl. Warren, he said, voice perfectly pitched with sadness. I wish we could have resolved this without lawyers. I didn't respond, couldn't trust myself to speak. Patricia Holloway sat at the head of the table, crisp suit and confident posture. Thomas took the seat beside me, setting his leather binder down with a decisive thunk. Thank you all for coming, Patricia began. My client stands by her accusations. We're here to see if this can be resolved without trial. Thomas opened his binder. Miss Holloway, there are some facts you need to see. He slid hospital admission records across. Patricia's expression shifted from confidence to confusion to concern. Massachusetts General Hospital, Thomas said. Warren Morrison was admitted for emergency cardiac surgery February 10th, remained hospitalized until June 8th, 118 days. He laid out more documents. Nursing logs documenting vital checks every 4 hours, medication schedules, security footage. Here are the dates your client claims stalking occurred. He pulled out a calendar, dates highlighted. March 17th, Hartford, April, 2nd Worcester, April 23rd, Cape Cod, May 11th, Hartford. Patricia's confidence cracked. Every single one of those dates. Thomas continued, voice level. Warren Morrison was in a hospital bed, unable to walk more than 15 feet. He couldn't have been in Hartford. He couldn't have been anywhere except Mass General. The photographs, Patricia started. Someone who looks like my client. Thomas pulled out the 12 photos, laid them in a row, placed Derek's driver's license beside them. Same height, 6'1", same build, similar facial structure. Derek's expression hadn't changed. still concerned, confused. But his eyes had gone cold. Thomas connected his laptop to the screen. Security footage appeared. Timestamp, Wednesday, July 23rd. Masquerade Costume Shop, Asylum Street, Hartford. The video played. A man walking into the shop, browsing wigs, selecting a gray theatrical wig, moving to accessories, picking up wire-rimmed glasses, circular frames, trying them on. Derek Chambers purchasing the tools to become me. 3 minutes of footage. Derek at the register, paying cash. Walking out with a bag containing my identity. Patricia had gone pale. This is identity theft, Thomas said. Phone spoofing, impersonation, all documented, all provable. For the first time since we'd entered, Hannah looked up. Her eyes found mine across the table. Not anger, not accusation, fear. She'd heard everything, seen the evidence, watched her husband buying a disguise to frame her father. Derek must have felt her looking because he turned. Hannah, I can explain. His voice had changed. The concerned sympathy was gone. Something harder, desperate had crept in. His mask cracked. Just for a second. A flash of something cold and calculating crossed his face. Hannah saw it. Recognition dawned in her eyes. Her entire body tensed. Her hand moved unconscious and protective to rest on her stomach. The gesture was subtle, automatic, the kind of thing you'd miss if you weren't watching. But I was watching. And across that conference table, with evidence of Derek's deception spread between us, my daughter's eyes met mine. What I saw wasn't anger or betrayal or confusion. It was fear. Pure visceral fear, not for herself, for someone else. And I spoke quietly across the table. Hannah, when is the baby due? The room went silent. Hannah's head snapped up, eyes wide. Derek's hand tightened on her chair. That's none of your business, he said, voice harder. We're leaving. He grabbed her arm grip firm enough that she flinched, but she didn't move, just stared at me. Dad, she whispered. How did you know? Because I know my daughter, and I know you're in danger. This is absurd. Derek pulled at her arm. We don't have to listen to this. Actually, you do. Thomas opened a second folder, slid toxicology reports across. Because we're not done. I turned to Derek. You poisoned me. 5 months. Digitalis in the coffee you made. You caused my heart attack so you could frame me while I was helpless. Hannah went white. What? No, Derek wouldn't. Your father's collapse wasn't natural, Thomas said. This was a deliberate attempt to end his life. You're insane. Derek stood, yanking Hannah up, fingers digging into her arm. Hannah, we're leaving. Now. I stood, too, pain shooting through my chest. Take your hands off my daughter. She's my wife. Derek's face transformed, all pretense gone. That's my child. You have no rights. The possessive fury made Hannah's breath catch. I watched realization crash over her as she finally saw the truth. The door opened. Victor Hayes walked in carrying a folder. Derek Chambers, also known as Derek Marshall. Wanted in Nevada regarding Rebecca Chambers' passing 3 years ago. Digitalis poisoning. He dropped receipts on the table. Masquerade Costume Shop. Herbal supplements, foxglove extract. You bought the disguise to become him, and you bought the poison to end his life, just like Rebecca. Derek grabbed Hannah, pulled her toward the door, but Victor blocked the exit. Behind him, 2 Hartford police officers stepped in. Derek Chambers, you're under arrest. Derek tried to push past. Victor put him against the wall in seconds. Officers moved in, handcuffs clicking. I gave her everything, Derek screamed as they pulled his arms back. He was going to take her away. She's mine. Hannah stood, frozen hand on her stomach, other hand over her mouth. Officers led Derek out, still screaming. Patricia Holloway quietly withdrew the case and left. Then it was just Hannah and me. She collapsed, and I caught her, held her, while she sobbed. I'm sorry, she gasped. Dad, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I know, sweetheart. I know. I'm 10 weeks pregnant. I didn't know how to tell you. He said you disapproved, that you'd... We'll figure it out, I said, holding her tighter. Together, you and me. Through the windows, I watched the police car pull away, Derek's face still twisted with rage. But all that mattered was my daughter in my arms, the life she was carrying. She was safe. They were both safe. If you've stayed with me through this moment, through the arrest, through my daughter finally believing me, please leave a comment below so I know you're still here. And I need to tell you something important. What comes next includes some details I've changed for privacy reasons. The 9-year epilogue you're about to hear contains fictional elements, names of grandchildren, specific dates, some conversations reconstructed from memory. If you need every word to be courtroom certified truth, you might want to stop here. But if you understand that some truths are bigger than facts, stay with me for the ending. 3 weeks later, Hannah moved into my guest room. Neither of us wanted to be alone. August became a season of quiet healing, morning coffee, neighborhood walks as my strength returned, prenatal appointments together at Dr. Moore's clinic. One evening, Hannah told me her story. Derek had been perfect at first, attentive, loving, but gradually he'd isolated her, suggesting she call me less often, mentioning how I seemed controlling or disapproving, planting doubt. He said you'd try to take over once the baby came, she said, that you'd never accept him, that I needed to protect my family from your interference. When those photos appeared, when the calls started, it all fit. He'd prepared me to believe you were the threat. The legal system ground forward. Derek remained in custody without bail. Thomas filed a symbolic countersuit. Victor connected me with Rebecca's parents in Oregon. They'd spent 3 years wondering if they'd get justice. When Nevada reopened her case as homicide investigation, they called to thank me. You saved another family, Rebecca's mother said. Prosecutors told Thomas that Derek faced serious time, attempted harm charges, stalking, identity theft, phone fraud. Combined with Nevada, likely 30 to 45 years. He'd be an old man if he ever walked free. My recovery continued. Physical therapy 3 times weekly, walking 30 minutes daily. The pacemaker steady and reliable. Hannah filed for divorce in September, uncontested. We obtained a permanent restraining order. She asked what I wanted to name the baby, if it was a girl. Catherine, I said. After the doctor who saved my life. Hannah cried good tears. I started planning early retirement. 35 years of consulting was enough. I had more important things to do than review blueprints, like being there when my grandchild learned to walk. That was 9 years ago. Catherine Morrison turned 9 last month. She's smart with her mother's determination and my stubbornness. She plays soccer, reads above grade level, wants to be a doctor like Dr. Katie. Hannah rebuilt her life stronger. She's a counselor now, helping women recognize warning signs of controlling relationships. Surviving teaches you things worth sharing. Derek Chambers will spend the rest of his days behind bars. Nevada conviction came through. Combined with Massachusetts, he'll never see freedom. I don't waste energy feeling sorry. People ask how I survived those months, the poisoning, the accusation, the betrayal. The truth is simple. I survived because I had to. Because my daughter needed me even when she didn't know it. Derek counted on my helplessness. He tried to take my health, my daughter's trust, tried to end my life. What he didn't count on was that truth, when documented and persistent, weighs more than any lie. Technology made his deception possible, spoofed calls, digital disguises, manipulated evidence. But that same technology created records he couldn't erase. Hospital logs, security footage, toxicology reports, cell tower data. If this story teaches anything, when someone tries to erase you, fight back with facts. Document everything. Trust those who believe in you when belief is hard. Never underestimate a father's love. That pacemaker kept my heart beating through the worst. Love kept me fighting when giving up would have been easier. And truth documented, persistent, undeniable truth brought my daughter home. Some endings aren't fairy tale happy. Hannah's marriage failed. I'll never fully recover from what Derek did. Scars remain physical and emotional, but we're here, together. Catherine is growing up knowing her grandfather, knowing she's loved, knowing truth matters most. That's ending enough. So that's my story, one of those grandpa stories about survival and documentation. I'm sharing these family stories not for sympathy, but so you won't make my mistakes. Don't ignore warning signs. Don't assume family means safety. Don't wait until crisis hits to start keeping records. I've heard countless grandpa stories and family stories from others who've survived manipulation. We all say the same thing: God puts these warnings in our path for a reason. I believe God let me survive that surgery to tell you this. God gave me Thomas Victor, doctor. More people who valued evidence over accusations. And God gave me back my daughter when I thought she was lost forever. My advice from living through this: document everything. Verify before judging. Love doesn't require blind trust. These grandpa stories and family stories exist to teach you abuse hides behind familiar faces. If you found value here, Please like, subscribe, and share your own family stories in the comments. Final note, this content contains dramatized storytelling elements for educational purposes. Some details are fictionalized, but the core lessons about recognizing financial and emotional abuse are real. If this style doesn't suit you, that's okay. Please seek content that better fits your needs.